The Grand Galactic Union, by every definition of the word, was a mess. It wasn't a well-oiled diplomatic machine, as some of the younger and more naive races had hoped when they first joined. Instead, it was an organization that relied too heavily on bureaucratic nonsense, a sprawling entity that covered incalculable species from across the stars, all coexisting with each other, trading, and occasionally having petty disputes over resources and technology, but on the whole, it worked. Despite its many flaws, it lumbered forward, a testament to the galaxy's stubborn will to maintain some semblance of peace. At the heart of this colossal sprawling entity was the Grand Convocation Hall, a towering structure of polished alloys and shimmering energy conduits. Within its vast dome, the air hummed with the collective chatter of 1,000 species, each a marvel of evolution and technological advancement, seated in their designated pods. At the elevated central dais, presiding over the endless debates and intricate protocols, sat Grand Arbiter Theron, an ancient, grizzled Viridian. His skin, like ancient tree bark, was etched with the lines of centuries, and his multiple eyes, usually half-closed in contemplation, missed nothing. Theron embodied the Union's bureaucratic spirit, patient, meticulous, and utterly devoted to the endless paperwork that governed their fragile peace. He had seen empires rise and fall, alliances form and shatter, yet he remained, a constant steady presence amidst the galactic chaos. Beside him, in a sleek metallic seat that seemed to hum with contained energy, sat Ambassador Lyra, a sharp-witted, somewhat condescending synthetica. Her form was a flawless construct of gleaming chrome and interwoven light, representing a race that had integrated advanced AI into their very beings. Lyra embodied the new wave of technologically advanced but often arrogant species, those who believed logic and efficiency could solve every problem, often at the expense of messy, organic emotions. Her gaze was sharp, dissecting every word, every gesture, searching for inefficiencies. And then there was the human ambassador, Jenkins. He rarely occupied his assigned pod for long. More often than not, he was observed leaning back, a gentle snore rumbling from his chest, occasionally causing the surrounding holographic displays to vibrate slightly. Jenkins was outwardly disheveled, his clothes often wrinkled, and his hair perpetually messy. He looked perpetually tired, as if the sheer effort of existing within the Union's confines was an unbearable strain. Yet, if one looked closely enough behind the tired lids, there was an underlying spark in his eyes, a glint of something ancient and knowing that hinted at far more than met the eye. His attire, typically a faded, worn shirt and comfortable trousers, was notably casual, a stark contrast to the formal, often ceremonial uniforms of the galactic delegates. Humanity's entry into the Union remained an enigma. Most senior ambassadors couldn't recall when, how, or even why they had joined. Records were inexplicably missing, lost in countless bureaucratic reforms, or perhaps never properly filed. The few existing entries were either incomplete or nonsensical, like fragments of a dream too vast to fully grasp. Ambassador Jenkins's reputation for laziness only solidified the galaxy's perception of humans, slow, harmless, a little baffling, and best left to their own quiet corner of the cosmos. They were considered a benign, sleepy presence in the vast, bustling galactic arena, often a source of amused bewilderment rather than concern. The peaceful, day-to-day drudgery of diplomatic life was suddenly shattered, ripped apart by a crisis that shook the very foundations of the Union. The Crystallians, a young and vibrant race known for their dazzling body art that pulsed with inner light and their hauntingly beautiful vibration music, were struck by a devastating plague. It wasn't just a sickness, it was a blight that turned their intricate crystalline forms brittle, dulling their inner luminescence and silencing their melodic voices. Their very essence was being corroded from within. Billions were dying, their brilliant cities turning into silent graveyards of shattered light, and the Crystallians, a species known for its resilience and joy, found themselves on the brink of extinction. The sheer scale of the suffering was immense, a silent scream across light years. Their ambassador, Lumina, stood before the council, her usually shimmering form dulled, her exquisite body art fading, its vibrant hues replaced by a sickly, muted gray. Her composure, normally a reflection of her people's serene harmony, barely concealed the raw despair that threatened to consume her. Her inner light, usually a beacon of calm, flickered weakly in the chamber's grand illumination, mirroring the agony of her dying people. She pleaded, her voice, usually a harmonious resonance, now cracked with emotion, echoing her people's plight. She offered anything and everything: vast reserves of rare minerals, advanced energy technologies, future allegiances, for help combating the plague. But the other races, those who had always prided themselves on their compassion and interspecies cooperation, remained inert. They sat in their pods, their faces grim, their voices hushed, but their actions spoke louder than any words. They used elaborate diplomatic language, weaving intricate excuses like economic instability, quarantine protocols, and resource reallocation conflicts to avoid assisting. They offered meaningless platitudes, empty words that rang hollow in the desperate silence of Lumina's plea. Our deepest sympathies. We send thoughts of strength. We wish you well in your struggle. In one particularly jarring instance, a delegate from the harmonious conclave, known for their empathetic sounds, offered only sympathetic clicks, a sound entirely devoid of genuine intent, a shallow echo of comfort. The Crystallians were left to die. Lumina sobbed openly, her crystalline tears hitting the polished floor with soft, fragile tinkles, each sound a tiny echo of her people's fading hope. And at that point, as Lumina's grief filled the vast chamber, silencing all but her broken sobs, she noticed something peculiar. The council chamber had gone completely silent, an unnatural quiet that swallowed the usual murmurs and whispers. The eyes of all ambassadors, usually scanning their datapads or each other, had been drawn to something shuffling slowly down the grand stairs towards the speaking platform. Lumina, her vision blurred by tears, struggled to focus. Then, through her shimmering, watery gaze, she could make out the unmistakable form of Ambassador Jenkins. He paused halfway down the stairs, a figure of casual disregard amidst the galaxy's most powerful. He stretched, a long, leisurely stretch that cracked his knuckles audibly, then let out a deep, resonating yawn that seemed to pull the very air out of the chamber. With a slow, deliberate motion, he adjusted his slightly askew tie, a faded, brightly colored accessory adorned with tiny surfing space squids. His loud Hawaiian shirt seemed even more incongruous against the backdrop of solemn, high-tech uniforms, a defiant splash of mundane amidst the cosmic. As he finally reached the main floor, loud gasps were heard from the assembled diplomats. These were not gasps of annoyance, but of profound shock and reverence. The proud members of the 4 oldest races on the council, beings whose histories predated recorded galactic time, whose empires spanned millennia, whose wisdom was legendary, all stirred. Elder Ambassador Karan, the stoic Vorlag, whose armored form was usually unmoving, shifted in his seat. Elder Ambassador Alara, the ethereal wise luminaire, a being of pure ancient light, pulsed with a soft, respectful hum. Elder Ambassador Xylos, the deep-voiced, contemplative Chronosian, whose race observed time with unique clarity, lowered his gaze. And Elder Ambassador Phantos, the enigmatic, shifting Etherian, whose form was almost a ripple in reality, solidified into a more defined shape. Then, in a synchronized, deliberate motion that sent shivers down the spines of many, they all stood as one, and bowed, deeply, their forms bending in unison, in true reverence to the human. These species, considered noble and proud beyond measure, had never been seen to bow to anyone. Their very legends spoke of their unyielding pride. Yet here they showed such deep, unreserved respect that it brought many younger delegates to tears, understanding that they were witnessing something profound, something that defied all known galactic protocol, a glimpse into a hidden hierarchy and ancient truth. Jenkins, seemingly oblivious to this unprecedented show of respect, simply carried on, ambling towards the speaking platform. He approached Lumina with a warm, comforting smile on his lips, a stark contrast to the despair that had just enveloped her. His gaze, though tired, was soft and understanding. He cleared his throat, a small earthly sound in the grand chamber, and held out his hand. Plague nasty business. Give me what data you have, please. The words from Jenkins weren't a command, nor were they said in any sense of an authoritarian voice. They were calm, almost conversational, as if asking for directions. Yet, every fiber of Lumina's being screamed at her to obey. There was an unspoken authority in his casual demeanor, a quiet weight that transcended any diplomatic rank. Without question, she handed over the data tablet, her hand trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a burgeoning sense of awe and a faint, desperate hope. Jenkins swiped through the data, his eyes scanning the complex crystalline structures, the viral progressions, the genomic decay, letting out the occasional tut or a soft hum of contemplation. He scrolled through charts of plummeting populations, images of dulled, dying crystallians. When he had finally finished, his expression unreadable for a moment, he looked up at Lumina and smiled. "Be back in a jiffy," he said, his voice light as if running a quick errand. And with that, he clicked his fingers. The sound of his disappearing act was not subtle. It was a ripple in reality, a soft, impossible whoosh that caused even louder gasps than the previous display of reverence. The air in the chamber seemed to compress, then expand, leaving a faint scent of ozone. Even the 4 ancient elder races who had just bowed to him seemed momentarily taken aback, their ancient eyes widening imperceptibly, as if surprised by a child's sudden, unexpected trick. The room seemed to stand still after Jenkins' surprising departure. The abruptness of his disappearance, coupled with the elders' bizarre show of respect, had stupefied everyone. For a few long minutes the silence persisted, thick with disbelief. Delegates exchanged bewildered glances, their whispers rising only to die in their throats. They tried to process what they had just witnessed, their advanced logical processors failing to reconcile the event. Just as the murmurs began to regain some volume, reaching a crescendo of speculation, there was another sound, a dull familiar whoosh, like a distant sigh of air. Jenkins was back, standing in the exact same spot he had previously occupied, a new, identical data tablet in his hands, and the same friendly, casual smile on his face, as if he'd just popped out for a cup of tea. "Here you go," he said, holding out the tablet to Lumina. "Should sort out that little plague for you." He didn't wait for a response, didn't demand thanks or explain himself. With that, he simply turned around and began shuffling back to his seat, seemingly content with his sudden intervention, a faint snore already threatening to rumble from his chest. Lumina looked at the data tablet in her hand, and couldn't believe her eyes. The humans, the lazy, sleepy humans, had handed her a cure for the plague. It wasn't just a potential treatment, it was a complete, elegant solution. A complex biological agent designed to precisely counter the crystalline virus, reactivating the inner light and restoring the molecular integrity of her people. It was a blueprint for a counteragent that targeted the crystalline virus with astonishing precision. The Council, still reeling from Jenkins' inexplicable teleportation and the elder race's reverence, sat in stunned silence. They had just watched a civilization offer everything they had, only to be dismissed, and then, in a blink of an eye, saved by the very species they considered useless. The grand convocation was adjourned in complete shock, a silent, bewildered exodus of ambassadors. The crystalline scientists, receiving the data from Lumina, quickly confirmed its potency, their initial skepticism replaced by an overwhelming sense of awe. They meticulously followed the human blueprint, synthesizing the counteragent. Its effectiveness was immediate, beyond anything they had ever conceived. They proclaimed it a miracle, a masterpiece of bioengineering that defied their current understanding of genetics and energy manipulation. They were in awe of its elegance, its simplicity, and how astonishingly effective it was. Mass production began immediately, the crystalline forms of the dying slowly regaining their vibrancy, their melodic voices returning, pulling billions of lives across the Xylos home systems back from the precipice of extinction. Life for the crystallians slowly began to return to normal, imbued with a newfound profound gratitude towards the mysterious Earthlings, their silent saviors. The Council, once their initial shock had subsided, officially thanked the humans for the cure, sending formal diplomatic communiques and even offering them more favorable trade agreements, hoping to curry favor with this enigmatic power. For the most part, galactic life returned to its usual bureaucratic drudgery, the incident filed away as a bizarre, fortunate anomaly. But the calm was deceptive, a thin veneer over simmering resentment. The Grawl, a brutish, expansionist race known for their aggressive territorial claims and formidable military, had secretly engineered the plague. Their plan was simple: eradicate the Crystallians, then seize control of their resource-rich territory, which held vast reserves of a rare mineral crucial for high-end weaponry. Now, enraged by the unexpected human intervention that had thwarted their genocidal ambitions, the Grawl ambassador, a hulking, scaly figure named Grok, stomped onto the council stage. His voice, a guttural roar that vibrated the very floor, boomed through the chamber as he declared war on the Xylos, claiming them weak and their demise inevitable. He openly mocked the council's inaction, dared any to stand in the way of the Grawl Empire's destiny, and reveled in the fear his declaration instilled. The council debated furiously for days, their diplomatic words echoing with the hollow sound of powerlessness. Votes were taken, projections analyzed, but the outcome was predictable. Due to the immense financial cost of defending the Xylos, and the insurmountable risk of an all-out war with the Grawl, a species renowned for its unyielding military might and willingness to sacrifice millions for territory, the Xylos were, once again, abandoned to their fate. The diplomatic language of strategic non-intervention, minimizing galactic conflict, and preserving overall Union stability, once again masked a core cowardice. The Grawl, their might undeniable, would have their way. A vast Grawl fleet, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, bristling with an overwhelming array of weaponry, plasma cannons, kinetic accelerators, disruptor fields, was dispatched. It arrived in the Crystallian home system, a vibrant system filled with gleaming crystalline structures and melodic resonances, now under siege by a dark, menacing cloud of destruction. The Grawl warships, sharp and aggressive, prepared to wipe out the Crystallians once and for all. As they plunged deeper into the Crystallian system, their sensors screamed with a sudden, impossible anomaly. A single ship emerged from out of nowhere, not a warship, not a scout, but a lone, sleek, and utterly unassuming human vessel. It shimmered into existence, directly blocking their approach, a solitary barrier against an unstoppable tide. It was dark, utterly devoid of visible weaponry, no cannons, no missile launchers, no obvious shields, yet it gave off a presence, an unnerving sense of quiet power that sent a chill down the spines of the veteran Grawl fleet crews. Their advanced targeting systems couldn't get a lock, their sensors struggled to categorize it, finding it both there and not there, a phantom against their formidable instruments. A single transmission from the human ship was received by the Grawl commander, a massive scarred Grawl warrior named Commander Catharn, whose bridge was a hive of aggressive energy and booming orders. A calm, surprisingly gentle voice boomed across the Grawl comms channel, devoid of any threat, yet filled with an undeniable, ancient authority. "This is the Lox and Glens Transport Retiree Express. You are ordered to withdraw from Xylos space immediately." Commander Catharn's multifaceted eyes narrowed. He scoffed, his clawed hand clenching into a fist, crushing a communications bead. "A single human ship? A transport? You dare defy the might of the Grawl Empire? You stand in the path of destiny, Old One. This is an insult of the highest order." With a roar, he waved his claw at his comms officer. "All ships, fire at will. Incinerate that pathetic human vessel. Let them learn that crossing the Grawl Empire has consequences. Show them what true power is." With a synchronized roar of power, thousands upon thousands of Grawl warships unleashed their fury. Lasers, vibrant beams of focused energy, cut through the void, scorching empty space. Plasma bolts, incandescent and destructive, slammed into the seemingly fragile human vessel. Kinetic projectiles, massive and fast, hammered its invisible defenses with concussive force. The void churned with explosions and energy discharges, a symphony of destruction designed to obliterate anything in its path, to leave no trace but superheated gas. The Grawl fleet continued to fire for what felt like an eternity, pouring every ounce of their destructive capability onto the single dark speck. Commander Catharn stood incredulous on his bridge, his massive form rigid, staring at the main view screen. Where there should have been a rapidly cooling cloud of debris, the expected aftermath of such an overwhelming assault was the human ship. It floated there, utterly untouched. Not even a scorch mark marred its sleek surface. No flicker of a shield indicated it had taken any impact. No displacement of its hull suggested the kinetic blows had registered. If anything, it seemed rather more menacing than before, its quiet, dark presence now radiating an almost playful contempt for their firepower, a silent, unyielding monument to their futility. Cathern's jaw hung open, a low growl of disbelief rumbling in his throat. This was impossible. Suddenly the view screen flickered, and a human appeared on it. It was Jenkins. He was wearing a rather loud Hawaiian shirt, even louder than the one he'd worn in the council chamber, adorned with caricatures of tiny surfing space squids. He was leisurely sipping something out of what resembled a coconut, complete with a tiny umbrella, a picture of absolute calm. He looked Commander Catharn directly in the eye, his expression unreadable, then let out a soft, dismissive tut, a sound that seemed to convey ages of disappointment. He casually, almost lazily, clicked his fingers, a small, sharp sound that somehow reverberated through the comms channel, resonating directly inside the Grawl commander's skull. "Next time," Jenkins said, his voice calm, almost tired, as if scolding a misbehaving child. "Listen to your elders." With that, every single Grawl sailor, marine and soldier on the fleet, from the lowliest engineer deep in the engine core to the proudest bridge officer, found themselves in a state of utter shock, suddenly standing on the Grawl home world. They were in their homes, their barracks, their training grounds, anywhere but their ships. They reeled, their minds struggling to comprehend the instantaneous displacement. Their weapons, their datapads, even their clothes sometimes were gone, left behind. The Grawl home world erupted into chaos, millions of bewildered warriors appearing out of thin air. Back in the crystalline system, the now unmanned Grawl fleet hung motionless for a beat, its thousands of ships adrift. Then, horrifyingly, their internal systems, perhaps tampered with during their sudden transfer, began a precise, accelerating course correction. The vast armada, stripped of its crews, began to move. It wasn't retreating, it was diving, directly towards the Grawl sun. From their home world, the Grawl watched helplessly, their roars of rage turning into screams of despair, as their entire fleet, their pride and their power, their future and their glory, plunged into the fiery heart of their own star, ceasing to exist in a flash of incandescent light, an empty, silent funeral pyre. The sun, their life-giver, had become their devourer. Several weeks later, the Grand Convocation Hall once again convened. Lumina stood tall, her crystalline form now glowing with renewed vibrancy, her inner light pulsing with gratitude, a testament to her people's miraculous recovery. The recent disasters her people had faced had caused her immense sorrow, a pain that lingered like a phantom ache, a scar on her soul. But the unlikely, impossible salvation of her race from these catastrophic events, by a race she hardly knew anything about, spurred her on. Her natural crystalline curiosity, combined with a deep sense of unanswered questions, pushed her to do the unthinkable. She approached the ancient elder ambassadors, who had, to everyone's astonishment, bowed to Jenkins. They regarded her with a quizzical wisdom, their ancient eyes reflecting the quiet understanding of eons, a sense of having witnessed countless such dramas unfold. "Child," the Eldrin ambassador, Alara, began, its voice gentle but with a resonance that echoed around the chamber, a sound like ancient wind chimes played on the edge of the void. "The humans, as you call them, are the first. They are the oldest of us all. Their presence predates recorded galactic history, longer than even our own memories stretch. They are powerful beyond comprehension, their might a fundamental force of the universe itself, a power so vast it barely registers on our instruments. Our most powerful of weapons are but toys to them, harmless trinkets in their grasp. They tolerate our flaws, our bickering, our endless diplomatic nonsense, our petty squabbles over resources, and they guide us when necessary. When needed, they teach us as a parent would when guiding its children, allowing us to make our own mistakes, to stumble and fall, but always ready to catch us when we fall too far, when the threat becomes truly existential." The Zil ambassador, Xylos, added, a faint tremor in their usually steady voice, a ripple of awe that even their ancient wisdom couldn't entirely contain. "They have seen races rise and fall, empires crumble into dust, their grand ambitions turning into cosmic dust. They have witnessed stars being born in glorious explosions, and fade into nothingness. They are our guardians, Lumina, the silent shepherds of this galaxy, the gentle hand that guides us from the brink. They will pick us up when we stumble, though they prefer to nap through most of it, observing from the shadows, allowing the galactic experiment to unfold. But make no mistake, they are always ready. And when they finally stir, when they choose to intervene, well, child, you've seen what happens. The very fabric of reality bends to their will. Lumina looked towards the empty seat of Ambassador Jenkins, a newfound profound respect blooming in her heart, intertwined with a healthy dose of fear. Humanity, she realized, may appear lazy, slow, and prone to snoring so loudly they cause the holographic display to vibrate. But they are capable of erasing entire fleets with a mere snap of their fingers, of shifting entire populations across light years in an instant, of crafting miraculous cures from seemingly nowhere. Their casual disregard for galactic affairs, their preference for peace and quiet, was not indolence, but a sign of their incredible self-restraint. With power like that, absolute terrifying power, perhaps it was best they mostly slept, their benevolent slumber a form of cosmic mercy. The universe, vast and unpredictable, was truly a strange and wonderful place, and its oldest, most powerful inhabitants were simply enjoying their nap, knowing that when truly needed they would stir and the galaxy would be safe.